Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Faithfully Her. I'm so excited about today's episode because I'm being joined with a very special lady. Her name is Miss Nicole. She is an author and she is a consultant of human thought. She's a consultant of human thought engineering. Which is something that I'm more interested in learning about. I'm hoping that you guys are too. And today we're going to be talking about I don't want to say, we're going to be discussing police brutality and how it affects our children in their daily lives and what we can do as a community to possibly just move forward in a healthier way. So I'm excited again. Please, everybody, welcome Miss Nicole.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much again for coming on and sharing this time with me.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, before we get into it, I just would like for you to introduce yourself to our audience or, our listeners, because we do stream on Spotify. Woo!
Yay.
So, so if you could just kind of introduce yourself and let the people know who you are.
Absolutely. As you already said, my name is Nicole. I am an author. I have a book out that is called And Then the Light Bowed. It is available via Amazon. And again, as you stated, I'm a consultant and I consult on human thought engineering. And I am also the visionary and the founder of the Center of Thought and Intelligence. So that's something else that I guess we can touch on and discuss.
Okay, well, before we get into our main topic, I do kind of want to know more because, as I was telling you, I've never heard of human thought engineering. So I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about what that is and how it's designed, I guess.
Right. Okay, human thought engineering. Basically, it is helping people to, it's materializing the thought sequence that we as humans have. So basically what that means is taking the steps that we go through as humans to come to a decision and materialize that so that we are able to make better decisions. That's literally what it is, summed up. That's what we've done at the center. We've actually taken years of research and experiences and study, and we've quantified, if you will, the sequence of thought that, again, as I said, that we all go through, but not just the sequence of thought, but the opportunities to re-engineer, if you will, different parts of that sequence so that we are able to make better decisions. We are able to be more in control of our thought responses as well as our emotional and behavioral responses.
Okay. And is there like a certain class of people or demographic of people that you guys are specializing your work in right now?
No, because okay, to answer the question, no, there is not a certain demographic. However, it is a certain demographic in the way of those that are consciously ready. So let's say it that way, because most times when people say a demographic, we're most likely referring to a class of people based upon race. But for us, it's the class of people that are consciously ready to actually understand the blueprint, if you will, of how we think, what we think, how we respond, but most importantly, how to change that and understand that you are 100% in control of changing that. So as far as the societal definition of demographic, no, but the way in which we define it, it's just those that are ready.
Okay. Okay. And that makes sense because with anything, if you're not actively ready to make a change or do something different, then it's just the hamster on the wheel.
Absolutely.
So I can understand that. And so what got you into that particular field of study? Like, what was that motivation?
Right. The motivation was 22 years of depression and suicidal ideation. Um, and it was a really interesting journey because somewhere along the line, um, because I didn't go to a therapist, I didn't seek out those kind of avenues of help. It was something else. People define it differently. People say it's, your higher self, God, spirit, universe. It's whatever it is that, you want to, qualify it as. It's that part of me somewhere along the line of those 22 years, it helped switch the experience of depression to where it wasn't just the experiencing of the low moments, but it was a shifting of the perception in those moments to say, what can you learn in these moments? And it's in those classrooms that I call them, those, depressive, classrooms, that I really discovered just the vastness of our minds, consciousness. It's this vast sea of opportunity. It's this vast sea of knowledge that's literally just waiting for us to reach out and tap into it. It sounds really cliche, but it literally is that. And so it was in those moments where I would get glimpses of just how powerful the mind is, and if we actually harness that first and operate it from that space first versus the emotion, then the choices and the thoughts and the emotions that we have, it would be that we really want to have versus a very reactionary, quote unquote, human like, if you will, response where we're actually in control, like
Right.
as 100% of what we think, what we feel, and what we do, because those are our three defining pillars of our reality: what you think, what you feel, and what you do.
Hmm.
So it was in those moments that really helped me to, um, just see clearer just what we're capable of if we take the time to slow down and look at the processes of what it means to be human, or what it means to have this consciousness that's so vast. If we just took the time to explore that, what does that mean for our humanity? What does
Right.
that mean for the building of our reality as we experience this, human condition? What literally does that mean? So that's how I got into that field.
Okay. And I think that that kind of leads us into the topic at hand today, because it's almost as if the certain class of people or the certain race of people, the Black community, we're not considered human beings anymore, or
Mm-hmm.
if we were ever really considered human beings. But you have that population that feels that way, especially when you look at the police brutality
Mm-hmm.
and everything that's happening in the world today. It just makes you feel like, well, why don't they see me as a human? Why aren't they
Mm-hmm.
thinking of me as a person? Or you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
so to segue into it,
Yeah.
um, as far as, because I know you have done some work with youth, the
Yeah.
teen population.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as that goes, what impact have you discovered, whether it's from talking to your teens or anything, do you think the police brutality has on their mental stability right now? Because it has to be hard to be a teenager and you're going to your friend's house and you have to be afraid if the police roll up on you. You know what I'm saying? You can't wear a hoodie, you can't wear dark. It's like you can't do, what can I do as a teenager without having the fear of the police just attacking me or assuming the worst about me?
Correct. Okay, so that's a really interesting question because for me, because I have teenagers, um but again, I've also worked with teenagers. For me, it's how do we as parents help them to understand? Because if we're allowing them simply just to look at it, then we run the risk of allowing them to also process what that means. And because it's so many variables in understanding society and how to function out there and how to behave in certain situations, that we have to really step our game up as parents. Because if we're not having the conversations with our teens, which are very hard conversations, because even talking to my teens, it's, as you said, you can't wear the hoodie, or don't wear the hoodie like this. Or the other day, my son wanted to buy, those gaiters where they cover your face, but then they also have the hood, like
Yeah.
the ski. He wanted that, and I said, no, you can't. No, you're not gonna get that. And he said, well, how come? And I said, well, I want you to take a moment and think about all of the things that have been happening surrounding young Black men. And just that, you know, ping pong off of his question for me to make him do the work in his conscious and critical thinking. Because I can say, don't get that or don't do that all day long. But if we're not making them conscious and introducing them to how to critically think, when it comes to keeping themselves safe when I'm not around, then I think for that particular issue, we as parents have to step up. But then there is the, when my sons aren't around me, what do they think? For the most part, for my sons and other teens, they have it in their heads, but and they see what's going on. We've witnessed everything that's going on. We've watched the riots. We've watched this. We watched the case around George Floyd. We watched his sentencing. I mean his verdict hearing. We did that, and they get it. But to what degree do they get it?
Right.
I really don't know, because they still function as though that this is the life that they've become accustomed to. So they just adjust accordingly. Now, is that the consensus among all teens? I don't think so. But for the ones that I've come in contact, it's just they have this thought process where I'm not going to live my life afraid. Even at my 16-year-old, I'm not going to live my life afraid. I'm aware of what's going on, and I'm going to do what I need to do to keep myself safe, but I'm not going to live my life afraid.
Right.
That's literally, like, I don't want to say the best, but that's the answer that they're at for the moment, because are they afraid? No, I don't pick up fear. I pick up more of anger from them when I talk to them. And I validate the anger. I tell them not, I never tell them not to be angry. I also think that that's part of us learning how to be emotionally responsible, is validate. You have
Mhm.
the right to be angry. I'm angry too, but what are we going to
Right.
do with the anger?
Right. Right.
Right? So it's teaching that. So yeah.
Because we have to be able to put, and I guess that's where a lot of my worry comes from with everything. Like, can we just make sure that we put that anger, that energy into creating something that makes sense, something that's
Absolutely.
positive and something that's going to make sense, something that's going to
Right.
make an effective change.
Exactly.
Not, I don't want to see riots in the street, businesses being destroyed, cars being flipped
Absolutely.
and burned, people being hurt and
Mhm.
gassed and handcuffed. Like, you don't want to see that. You want to see
Mhm.
where collectively can we put that anger into creating something that's going to be a positive step forward for our people and the generations that are set to come. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
Yeah.
My son went out and he was a part of like the protesting in Atlanta for Black Lives Matter. And I was so proud of him for actively showing up
Mm-hmm.
and doing something positive with the hurt and the anger he was experiencing from everything he
Right.
was seeing. And but to speak on what you were saying as far as that mentality of, you know what, this is just the way things are and I'm not going to live in fear. That's kind of the same thing my son told me when I talked to him about it. He was like, well, Mom, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to live in fear. I'm going to go to work every day. I'm going to do everything that I normally do.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to give them any reasons, but I'm not going to be afraid either. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I get that. And I'm happy that that's the stance. But, you know, as a parent, there's still that little that percentage of worry that sits in as like, make sure your seatbelt is on, you know what I'm saying,
Absolutely.
make sure you're looking both ways before you cross the street, you know, you're still
Absolutely.
giving those type of that type of advice to them because you
Mm-hmm.
just want them to be as safe as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You do. And some of our added concern or worry is some of our added worry comes from us having a wider range of reference points. They don't, right? They can only respond to what they've been exposed to.
Right.
We can, for the most part, we've been seeped in the Rosewood, the Emmett Till, the Rosa Parks. We've been steeped in all of the trauma of our
Mm-hmm.
past. For the most part, they haven't. They're
Right.
aware, but they're not technically steeped in it like
We
we
were.
are.
Yeah.
And or so their emotional response and then their thought process towards it's not going to be as intense as ours either, even though they're seeing all this on TV. The other factor of that is the desensitizing that happens because they have so much access to violence. They have so much access to watch videos of the 9 minutes and 19 seconds or however many seconds his knee was on his neck.
Right.
They have the video footage where they can just watch it. It desensitizes you on a neurological level to where your response is not what it would be for us. You understand? It's like their code of exposure is higher than ours.
Yeah.
We can say, oh, I don't want to see that, because we understand that we don't need to see all that. But for
Right.
them, they register it different in this generation. They like, no, I want to see because I want to see. And what that does, even if it's from a curiosity level or is from a study level, it doesn't matter. If you're constantly exposed to it is and you're not watching it for a purposed reason outside of entertainment, then it's going to desensitize you. So they
Yeah.
can watch it all day long and they won't be phased by it. So
Yeah. And I don't know how I would feel about being desensitized to it. Cause like with the George Floyd, I didn't watch it for a while. The video that, everybody was kind of like posting it. It was all over social
right.
media. And I kept staying away from it. Like, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
see this. I don't want to see this because I know me and I just
Exactly.
didn't want to see it. And then I finally broke down. Don't know why. I let the pressure get to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that video and I cried for like a week straight. I would just be in the car and would just start crying. I would be at work and would just start crying. Like I
Yeah.
would just hear his voice calling his mama in
Mm-hmm.
my head and it would just break me down. And
Yeah.
I couldn't hold back my tears. I was just heartbroken, like it's heartbroken to see. I've never seen anyone be
Right.
murdered before. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
to see that, it took a lot out of me. I had to come off of social media for a couple of weeks, and I had to get myself together. I was giving myself pep talks every day. Like
Yeah.
I was stalking my son, like calling him several times a day. If he
Yeah.
didn't pick up the phone, I would call his dad. Have you talked to him? And he's like, he's probably at work. And I'm thinking like, oh yeah, he do have a job. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But I was just so, I just wanted to make sure every minute of the day that he was okay. And
Right.
I can remember he got into a car accident and he called me, and I was like, are you okay? You know, of course, that's the first thing you ask, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like, did the police come? Did they like, what was their
Right.
reaction? What was that? Now that I know you're physically okay, what was
Right.
that interaction with them? Was it safe? Were you okay? Was it in the lighted area? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like all of these questions. And he's just like, no, ma, it was fine. They just came, they wrote it up, gave me, you know what I'm saying? I'm a file the insurance claim, everything is good. He
Right.
was so casual with it.
Right.
I was literally pulling my hair out, you know, because I
Exactly.
was so nervous. And I
Exactly.
just called his dad and was like, you have to get to that scene right now. Like the police are there, you have to show up. Just
Exactly.
so he won't be alone. And
Exactly.
whatever happens, he's not alone. And I
Exactly.
don't know if it's just me or is that a consensus of parental feelings?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that would be a really interesting study to actually conduct. To, for Black women. Excuse me, for Black mothers is just to, do that, quick survey, really quick. And I'm almost 100% sure that that is a consensus amongst us as Black mothers, because I'm the same way. Like, I'm fearful of my son to start driving. I literally am. But at the same time, I have to weigh his independence against my fears. It's
Yeah.
like, so do I allow my fears to override his need to be independent? And you understand? So
Yeah.
that is, there is so much. And I said this to you, but before this, is there's so many layers to this discussion, because all of what you were describing is like the anxiety that was created by the increase of what we're seeing in the police brutality and the police killings. So now what that subsequently does for Black parents is it creates this anxiety. It creates this, automatic trigger of when I haven't heard from, my son. It automatically goes to the worst. And for us to be in that cycle of fear and worry and anxiety, it literally, on a physical level, it sets us up for health issues. So this that we experience is much bigger than just us being angry or us being this literally is a whole person, effect,
Yeah.
psychologically,
Yes.
mentally, emotionally, physically. I mean, it just affects us on so many different levels. And it's it's rough. It's rough because even though we have the, wherewithal to say, I'm going on a social media, you know, detox, where we're not on social media for, 2 or 3 weeks. This generation doesn't do that.
Right.
It's like it's their, it's
It's
that's
their
another
Bible.
conversation. It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as parents, what age do you think we should really have that conversation with our kids to say this is America and these are the things we have to be cautious of when living Black in America?
Um, I believe that's person specific.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say, because I have a niece and nephew, they're 5 and 6. My sister has not had that conversation.
Okay.
And it's not a necessary conversation to have at
Right.
this moment. Um, Furthermore, she's the parent, um, and I applaud her for this all the time, that she really monitors their electronics. They don't have electronics because even at that age now, you will see children 5 and 6 with cell phones, with tablets, with this, with not nope, not my niece and my nephew. They don't even get it. They don't even watch TV. They watch TV once or twice a week for an hour. It's like she's really like hands on with them to make sure that she's cultivating them and not letting social media do it.
Raise them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I believe that to that question, I believe it's person specific. If for okay, somebody like myself and you, where we have teens, we have to have the conversation. If your child is in school and they're exposed to that conversation and they're 8 and they come home and they ask you, well, mom, on TV I heard. So then you have to have the conversation. So
Right.
again, it really just depends. But whatever the situation is, whatever the age, I am not a believer in not ever answering a question. I believe that you need to answer it age appropriately,
Hmm.
and at their level, so that that curiosity as to why they're asking you is fulfilled. Otherwise, they're going to keep searching. By nature, we are curious creatures, and that's how we learn.
Right.
So I believe at whatever age that they ask it, it it needs to be addressed on their level.
Yeah, and I get that because you don't want to do it too early and they don't really understand anyway what you're talking
Exactly.
about. And then you don't want to do it too late to where it's like, why didn't I prepare them?
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
I know for me with Trey, I want to say it was probably somewhere between 10 and 12
Mhm.
where we had to sit down and have a multitude of conversations because
Correct.
he's a young man, he's growing and things are
Mhm.
changing. So we had to have those conversations, and that was one of them. You
Mhm.
know, the police are not, I know we learn in school and you have all these great little workbooks that show the police as your friend, and I wanted him to know, like, yes, there are some very good cops out there that you can go to that will help you. They got your back, but
Right.
there is a select group of cops
Absolutely.
that don't care about you and they will hunt you. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you have to make sure that you as the individual
Mhm.
are upstanding and that you're doing what you're supposed to do and that you
Mhm.
never let it be in an unlit place. You
Right.
want it to be in a lighted area. You want, the first thing you do as soon as you see the lights, call me, put me on
Mhm.
speakerphone. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like those type of things, so you're not 100% alone in those situations and
Absolutely.
things of that nature. And then as he grew and he got his driver's license, the talk got more and more intense. And, we had to delve into it. I think I made him sit and watch Roots with me so he could understand. Like I
Yeah.
would make him watch those type of movies with me so he could just understand history. This is,
Yeah.
this is who we are as a culture of Black Americans or whatever.
Mhm.
And I want you to understand the journey that we have taken and the people who have come before you that have sacrificed and put their lives on the line so you can have these
Mhm.
types of freedoms. They wasn't born with them. They didn't just come easy. This was a fight. This was a
Mhm.
struggle. So be appreciative of the things that you do have in life and so
Right.
forth. So yeah, we've had those conversations. So I know you were talking, you mentioned something about it would be a great study to do for the parent black mothers. So trauma and PTSD, because sometimes I think I like even watching the trial for George Floyd and hearing the verdict, like I was happy for the verdict, but a part of me is still a little out, and I don't want to say traumatized, but I feel like that
Mm-hmm.
because even if the police, I got stopped by the police, and they were looking for a car that looked like mine. When I tell you those 5 cops that pulled me over, I almost went on myself in the car. I was so nervous because I'm like, I didn't do anything. My license is good. It's sure, like I'm running down the list in my
Of
head
course.
with my
Mm-hmm.
hands in plain sight. And I'm like, Lord, please don't let them kill me today. You know that, like, and I was so serious.
Oh yeah.
And they approached the car and they said, oh, we're just going to check your car because it matches the description of a car we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And he took my license and everything. And I'm like, please don't let this turn out to be a bad situation. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I at least want to be able to tell my son I love him before it's all over. You
Right.
just those, but those anxieties. And now every time
Exactly.
a cop car gets behind me, I freeze up, I go straight to 10 and 2, I turn the
Yeah.
radio down, I stop singing the song, and it's crazy. So how can we work past that trauma? How do we get past that?
Again, again, your questions are so amazing because because they are so multi-layered, you know. And it's really questions um where the variables to that answer is really inclusive of a lot of people, right? It's inclusive of um us, it's inclusive of lawmakers, it's inclusive of police men and women, you know. And it just and it's really inclusive because what we are experiencing from the PTSD, from and all the anxiety induced responses, those are a result of, we didn't create that. You understand? The variables created that.
Yeah.
What we're feeling is the result of, like 1 plus 1 is 2. We're the 2. The one in the one in the one is the politicians and the police, the ones that perpetrate that kind of behavior and, you know,
Mhm.
execute those kind of you know, actions. So to answer your question, um it's not really an easy answer, to be absolutely honest, um because we're not the creators of the problem. And in order to come to a solution, the creators of the problem have to be present to create the solution. Because even if I gave you a solution into how not to experience the anxiety that you feel, because I could give you a solution to say you could feel it but don't let it control you. You can feel it but just don't become it, you know. All of those things I could give you those, but they're still present because the creators aren't a part of the solution. So it's kind of like one-sided. Like, we could do everything that we need to do, but if the creators of the problem aren't involved, then it's never going to go away.
Yeah.
I could say move to a predominantly Black neighborhood, or move to somewhere where the crime rate is low, or move somewhere out the country, or I can say all of these things, but the emotional and the neurological responses is going to be the same if the creators of the problem aren't part of the solution.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I said probably would help a great deal, and would put the responsibility um, of solution primarily in our court, which would be move out the country, right? If we moved out of the country, then we understand, but for a good part of it, we understand that laws are different. You know, politicians are different. Um, the way in which perpetrators are dealt with are different outside of America, right? So if someone moved out of the country, um, then a great deal of that equation is taken away, which is the American politicians, the American police, force. Yes, politicians are still present. Yes, police is still present also in other countries. But what would begin to alleviate that would be the experiences that you have in that country. The
Yeah.
more you have the experiences that's opposite of what you have here in America, then that anxiety begins to alleviate itself because
Yeah.
you're not getting the same responses. You're going to have politicians, you're going to have police, but what are the interactions that you're having? So if you have a
Yeah.
more favorable and pleasant whatever interaction outside of the country, then that means that your anxiety responses is going to begin to go down and even alleviate itself.
Yeah.
But as long as we're in the space where the variables are the same, then all of the work that we may do for self to not experience that anxiety or that fear, it's it's still it's still going to be there.
Yeah. And it's funny because, when I think about it and I think back, I didn't have these type of anxieties or fearful thoughts of the police when I was younger growing up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we had
Exactly.
we had police officers that patrolled our neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like part of the family. They were
Mm-hmm.
at the neighborhood block parties and cookouts, and they knew the parents, they
Mm-hmm.
knew us, and they
Mm-hmm.
would drive up and stop and, hey, how was school today? And okay, don't let your mama catch you out here, she'll get you,
Exactly.
little stuff like that. So it wasn't a fear of the police
Mm-hmm.
until it seemed like I got older. And it's like,
Absolutely.
and like you said, social media, I didn't know what was happening in other places in around the world. I didn't know that, this was happening in Brooklyn or that was happening in Baltimore and so forth. I only knew about
Exactly.
my
Mm-hmm.
little corners. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? That's all I knew. So, and there was no fear for me. We had police officers in high school that we knew who
Absolutely.
were, friendly, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we knew they'd get you, but we go through the metal detector, so we understood what was happening, but it wasn't something
Exactly.
that was affecting me personally
Mm-hmm.
to where it created a fear or an anxiety. And
True.
even though George Floyd is not personal as far as I know him, there's a relation there or anything, it just felt so personal.
Exactly.
And I don't know what made that change. And the
Mm-hmm.
only thing I can say is social media, because social media opened us up to the world, and it opened
Absolutely.
us up to neighborhoods and communities that we knew nothing about before.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. It's the social media that's constantly showing the pain of that and how much is happening outside of where we live in our little corner of the world or in
Right.
our neighborhood. I mean, it's I thought about that same thing too with George Floyd. Like, I didn't watch the video. To this day, I have not watched the video. And I will not watch the
Yeah,
video.
don't do it to
Um,
yourself.
um, the little are you familiar with the case? This was some months ago. This little boy in New York. His name was Junior, and I think he was 15, and he was um, it was mistaken identity, and basically a gang killed him on the sidewalk. They
Oh wow.
they like stabbed him to death like on the sidewalk, and I could not watch that, and I to this day can't watch that. But what happened was I caught a glimpse. I caught an audio piece of it, and to this day, it's like I can't get it. It's like once it enters those gates, once you see it,
Mm-hmm.
once you hear it, it's there, you know. And to this day, I believe that that is the only form of violence that one of my sons have witnessed that affected him. I mean, it literally broke him down to tears. I mean, and he's seen the George Floyd, he's seen other things happen, but that particular one really, it did something to him. And I use that as an example to him, where you have to monitor what you're watching, because watching is one thing, but then you have to deal with the reaction that happens with yourself from watching.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because it's such an influx of information and stimulus, and if we're not coming behind them and teaching them how to regulate that, all we're technically doing in essence is like letting time bombs just happen.
Yeah.
Because at some point, that nonchalantness or that desensitizing, something's going to happen where it triggers everything that they've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not helping them to, again, regulate and verbalize through that process of what they're feeling, it's like we're creating a bigger problem. We're
Yeah.
creating that groundwork for them to stay angry, and it explodes in the wrong situation. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah,
I get that. I understand that because I talk to my son like that all the time. Like, so how are you feeling?
yeah.
What are your thoughts? Did you see this? Oh, so what did you
Mm-hmm.
think? How did it affect you? I'm always asking him that. Like, I just asked him the other day, like, are you traumatized by anything? Did I screw you up as a kid? Do you need some therapy? Like, I will pay
Exactly.
for it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I ask him, and
Exactly.
and he kind of laugh at me now and he'll say, raising you is a tough job. And I'm like, I
Right.
know, but I'm here to pay for your therapy,
Right.
so because I want him to be able to identify his feelings. I
Yeah.
don't want him to shove them down. And like you said, something triggers it and it's a bomb that
Mm-hmm.
goes off. So I want him to be able to say, like, this is how I felt with this. And this disturbed me, or, this angered
Exactly.
me, and so forth, and be able to identify that and then verbalize that feeling so we
Absolutely.
can work through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I don't want the
Yep.
bomb to go off and then it's a bad situation. And so yeah, I'd rather for him to deal with it up front and assess it,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
and if you need to sit with it for a day or two, sit with it, but then we still need to talk about that. We still need to verbalize it.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Mm-hmm.
So going a little bit further into this, I was reading an article all about the police brutality and, on minorities and so forth. And I came across an article in Counseling Today by Tommy, and her last name starts with a P. I don't know how to pronounce it. And I
Okay.
think her first name is pronounced Tommy.
Okay.
But the article goes on to say how there is limited mental health accessible to people of color or minorities. So we're talking our Latin brothers and sisters and so forth. And 50% of those people, 50% of those incarcerated actually have a mental health diagnosis. So it got me to thinking about another article that I read, and it was written in October 2020 by Alice Wolf, I think is how you pronounce her name. And her article was talking about a guy named Stephen Taylor, who was a young man who had mental health issues, and he was killed by the police in a Walmart store. So, he had a mental breakdown that day, and he was in Walmart and he was walking around with a baseball bat. They called the police. The police came in and they shot and killed him. And I was just thinking, like, when it comes to our younger people with mental health issues, how do we protect them in the community? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I work in mental health. And one of the things that is the credo is to make sure that they keep their dignity and they keep their self-respect, and they're able to function in society, or go to stores and do anything that we do without having to deal with the stigma of their mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
But in that instance where a person may be off of their medication, um maybe they heard or saw something that triggered that emotion for that breakdown. How do we protect them against the police? Like, do we put social workers out in place? What can we do as a community, in short of putting a sign around their neck saying I have a mental health issue? Like, what can we do to protect them? What are your thoughts on
Yeah. Um, Again, it's such
that?
a packed, such a packed question. Um, because it's variables that's in place, right? It's the person that's experiencing um the mental health episode, then there's the police, then there is um the place in which they're having this episode, if they're in a store.
And it was just the case where the guy was at home. He was on his front lawn and he had the fork or something. Oh my God, what am I?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, so whether you're at home, and you want to just be able to know that if I live with someone with a mental health diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and this day they're having a mental breakdown or something is
Mm-hmm.
happening, and I call 911 for help, I want to know that 911 is going to come and help and not shoot.
Yeah. So again, maybe it's because when you call the police, that's like the end result, right? It's like the result of, because something has happened. So
Right.
it's the result of, right? So maybe it's something with those variables before. Maybe, how people wear the bracelets, that they have some kind of medical condition. Maybe
Yeah.
they have to wear, maybe not, I don't want to say have to, but they wear those bracelets. Or when you're calling 911, make it so that the 911 operator asks, do you know if they have any medical, mental, conditions? I mean, it has to be some kind of firewalls that's there before the police arrive. And I am a fan of having social workers with police, to de-escalate um, those situations, because again, to be fair, when a police officer arrives, it's what are they trained to do? Because they're the result of, right?
Right.
Somebody feels threatened, something is happening to a level that law enforcement needs to be called.
Right.
So when they're there on the way and they get the information from the 911 operator, they're already responding internally. They're already, getting themselves ready to handle this situation based upon what the operator has told them,
Right.
right? So it has to be something done in those steps before that prompts the officer to know that this is a mental health case, not a 100% genuine threat
Threat. Yeah.
case. And then by having social workers with police officers, that should help the situations where it's somebody that's experiencing those kind of episodes, that they get the attention that they need and not get a bullet for it.
Yeah.
I think the bracelets would possibly be a really great idea, because it's something visible. It's something visible that a police officer can see. And again, it, they can see it, right? But then I
Yeah.
also think there's some kind of training or something that needs to be done with 911 um, operators. And this is just a thought that's just, you know, if the same way, oh, okay, this is just for this answer. The
Hmm.
same way that when you have a certain kind of um felony on your record, when they pull your name up, something should
Mhm.
come up when they, pull your name up, that this
Yeah.
is what you're experiencing. Again, I do not know. Let me put it out there. I don't know all the ins and outs of what goes on from the time a call is made to the time that a police officer arrives. Um, Outside of what we normally see, the 911 operator, and then the police arrives.
Yeah.
And then there also needs to be data sharing between the EMS and the police officers, because maybe the EMS can, it just needs to be
Right.
that
It needs to be
transparency
something
across
put
the
in place.
board. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does.
And I have a cousin who I think she's a supervisor for 911
Mm-hmm.
here, and I tried to get in touch with her, but she's busy, she works, but maybe I could make her sit down for an hour and talk to us about that.
Yeah,
And give us some insight into what happens in 911 in that world and how the messages
exactly.
are being sent out. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe like you said, there can be something that's stated, one of the questions can be is there any known mental health issues that we should
Exactly.
be aware of, so that way at that time we can say, okay, well maybe we need to dispatch a social worker as well as a police
Right.
officer to the scene, so there's somebody there that is trained on de-escalation
Exactly.
and knows how to de-escalate those cases and
Mm-hmm.
help talk that person back down. I can
Absolutely.
I know when I was working as a mental health social worker, and I would get calls from my clients who were on the edge, dealing with their sobriety or whatever. And I would get up and I would talk them down or go to where they were to try to bring them back down from that place so they didn't put that needle in their arm or they
Mm-hmm.
didn't take that drink. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if we can have something like that out in place, I think it would help. And I think we could save a lot of lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as far as like our prison system goes, for that 50% that's incarcerated with mental health issues, I think we could take a closer look at that and say, well, maybe all of these people didn't need to be locked up. They just needed
Absolutely.
medical services, where
Mm-hmm.
maybe, we can put them in a facility that's a hospital type facility for X amount of months, get them on the right medication regimen, watch them, get them into some therapeutic services as well, and maybe make it a condition to say, okay, you have to maintain services with this entity or this clinic or this organization to keep you from being incarcerated. You see what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Like there has to be something else we can do besides just locking
Absolutely.
everybody up.
Absolutely.
Like that
Yeah.
cannot be the answer, because even when these people are being released, are they being released any better than they were when they went in? Or
Correct.
did we do more damage by just locking them up?
Correct.
I think we
Correct.
forget human nature, or
Mm-hmm.
human, like I think we just lost it somewhere along the way. I
Yeah.
just wish we could get it back.
Hmm. Yeah.
A little human love
Understood.
and kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know when we were talking and you were saying the people in power, when it comes to the political, the people in power also have to be a part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at systematic racism, how can we I don't even know how to answer that question, because it's just like an exhausting thought. Like, what do we do? What do we do with systematic racism on this side of the fence, not being a person in power, not being political or anything? How do little old me help affect change?
Well, you could run for office on the local level. You could at least you could organize a block club, because at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, the people have power. I don't want to say have the power, but they have power, because it's the masses who gets the attention. So if there's a collective of people that are saying the same thing, then it's those collective of people that will be heard, right? Now, how long will they be heard? I don't know. Because as you've already said, systematic racism is such an exhausting um topic because of the word itself. It's systematic. It's a system. There's layers upon layers that those that created for a specific purpose, and those that are now part of it are upholding that, and because there is a lineage benefit. So what does that mean? Does that mean systematic racism can it be alleviated? To be absolutely honest, I do not even waste my thought process to even think that way, because that means that there would have to be, in order to combat that, there would have to be a consistent showing of solidarity amongst minorities consistently.
Yeah.
It has to be that consistent showing of solidarity across the board all the time to send the message that this is what's happening.
Yeah.
But because that has not happened, we
Laws
can
from
see
1880 still exist.
it still exists.
Yeah.
It still exists. I mean, we even can see it from the onset of the George Floyd incident, where they begin to give us little nuggets. Well, we'll paint Black Lives Matter on the street, or we'll change the street sign to this. And for the most part, the thought behind that is give them a little bit of something and they'll be okay. And the pattern has shown that that's correct. Give us a little bit of something and we're fine. But now that's kind of not the case. And that's why I feel that the verdict for, that officer was what it was, because there was no way they was going to risk having a not guilty verdict in this climate, because from the time George Floyd situation started, there has been a consistent showing of solidarity. Now, has it been an intense high level? No, it hasn't. But just the showing of the consistent solidarity, for not just here, but all over the world,
Right.
for this, not just this case, this particular case may have been like the springboard for it all. Actually, Ahmaud Arbery was that springboard.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, George Floyd situation happened, and we like, oh hell no.
Right.
And that is
And then the
that's
Breonna Taylor
and then the Breonna
situation, that
Taylor, and then there's other things, and then we're so exhausted with it. We're so exhausted. Like the other day, my son said, what was the name of the boy that got something? I was like, you know what? And I caught myself. And I caught myself from answering. I caught myself from being angry, because my thought was, it's so many. It's so many. I can't even remember which one you're talking about now. It's like, the young brother that was killed and rolled up in the gym mat. You know what I'm saying? The little girl that was just found 16-year-old hanging from a tree. It's like, what? It's like this is too much. It's too much, and we're tired. And I think that the powers that be, because the solidarity has been there, it's, let's continue to give them something. But what they're failing to see, it's not about what you're giving us, it's about what you're giving up. And until they understand that they have to give up some things, I don't think really anything will change on a permanent level.
Right.
They have to give up. It's not us. We can't, again, we didn't create the problem.
Right.
We can't fix racism because we didn't create racism.
That's true. And you said something and it made me think, like, the pacifier. They
Yeah.
do. It's a pacifier. They give us the pacifier and we quiet down
Yeah.
and we calm down a little bit. And then years of things happen and then we have to raise that voice again and again they put the pacifier back in.
Yep.
So and I hate thinking of it that way, but that's
Mhm.
exactly, like you said, that's exactly kind of like what they're doing. And I thought that thought about the verdict.
Mhm.
Like, oh, it's a guilty verdict because a non-guilty verdict is going to be bananas. It's
Yeah.
going to be insane in the streets.
Yep.
So, but and then now they have the talk of what the sentencing is going to be, if he's going to get the full amount of time or not. And
Exactly.
so, and that's something else we have to look out for, because
Mhm.
um it was brought up once before. I can't think of what I was watching it on, but they were talking about how sentencing laws are different, how a white man and a black man can commit the same crime, but the black man will get
Absolutely.
more time than the white man get.
Mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Louisiana, the laws that were created in the state of Louisiana hundreds of centuries ago were
Mhm.
created and designed to keep black people enslaved.
Exactly.
And those laws are still in place. Like they haven't changed them, altered them, amended them, or any, they're still there. And it's
Mhm.
all designed to keep us in a place
Mhm.
where, quote unquote, their foot is on our neck.
Yep.
It keeps us designed, it's designed that way. And
Exactly.
it's really sad, because it's like, what do we do to break these chains?
Right.
And we can come up with all kind of, like you stated, we could come up with so many different solutions, but if the powers that be are not willing to be at that table and hear those solutions and implement
Mhm.
some of those things, then we're going to always be raising our voices pacified, raising our voices and pacified. And
Absolutely.
it's sad, it makes me want to cry, because I'm like, what, you just feel like, what do you do? I'm at the end of the rope and there's no more rope left, and now what do I do?
Exactly. Exactly. And you know what, that is a great question. Um because I think we all may have thought that at one point in time, and because I know I have, and then I have to look at my sons, and take a page out of their book. Is you just have to keep living. It's like, and the way in which I make change on a personal level is the way that I make change on a personal level, because until, again, if we sit and think all day, like, how do I fix this? You'll be thinking
All
until
day.
you transition,
Yeah.
there because that's only a very small part of the equation to fix it. Is I can change how I behave, I can change how I drive, I can change all of these things. And as we've witnessed, you can do everything right and you still run the risk of not coming home.
Right. Right. And I could, so I'm a TV buff.
Okay.
So I can remember I was watching the episode of A Different World,
Mhm.
and it was the episode where Dwayne and Ryan got into it with the white boys from another college.
Mhm.
And he was saying, how he has his engineering degree and he's a strong black man and this and that, but at the end of the day, all they see,
Is a black man.
yeah, they
Yep.
don't see the hard work that you put into and everything that you've done to get your education and to create a positive space. Like for me and for my son, I always said, I just want him to be a productive and positive male in this
Mhm.
world. I
Mhm.
want him to, to have his education and to just be a positive, productive individual.
Mhm.
And I see that that's what he's becoming, and he's doing positive, and he's productive, and he works hours on top of hours, like when our day ends, he's still working. And so
Mm-hmm.
he's being that positive, productive person, but all they see in him is a Black person. And they
Yep.
don't see that he's educated and how hard he worked and the things that he's doing with his life and how he's trying to be a benefit to other people. Like, they don't see the goodness, and they don't see his heart. They don't see him as a human being. They
No,
just see a Black person. And it's nothing we could do to run from that, you
it's
know?
nothing. Nothing. I mean, we literally had examples, of this. And it's not hidden examples. These are publicized examples. Like the the white teen, I can't think of his name right now, but he on a rampage, shooting and killing people. They took him to Burger King because he was hungry. Now,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? It's like is that kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then here it is, you have Tamar Rice playing on
Mm,
his front lawn with a toy gun, and you shoot him as soon as you get out the car. See, it's
right.
like, and he was, how old was he? 11, 12, young. It's
It,
like, come on.
the scales
It's
of
like,
justice do not balance at all.
they
The
don't.
scales of justice are nowhere near balance.
It's, and when you talk about it, and and you actually sit with what comes up when you talk about it, it's like, we have every right to be pissed off. We have every right, like, to be like angry. And even when we talk about, Black women, like the angry Black woman, you right, you
Yeah.
right, you right.
Yeah.
We are, because I shouldn't have to worry about my sons leaving out. Are they coming
Yeah.
home? I I shouldn't be simply because of what they look like, not
Right.
something that they've done, simply because of what they look like.
Yeah. I had a work situation like that with a white
Mm-hmm.
woman who
Mm-hmm.
didn't see my education. She didn't see my skill set. She didn't see my abilities, or anything like that. She just saw my skin. And
Mm-hmm.
every time we had an interaction, it was me not being the angry Black woman. So it was
Mm-hmm.
me keeping my mouth shut and maintaining that dignity, because you need your job. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and my whole thing was, if I keep putting the best foot forward, if I maintain my cool, they won't have a reason. And this lady always was poking and prodding and trying to
Yeah.
get that reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, she
Mm-hmm.
wanted it from the texture of hair to anything that she could think of, she would come at me with, because she just did not want to
Mm-hmm.
see me for more than the color of my skin. And it just kind of really gets frustrating. And I know it's a lot of people that deal with it in their business lives, as well as, our Black men on the street, where it's
Mm-hmm.
coming from so many different angles. It's a surprise we haven't snapped sooner. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You're right.
as a community, it's so surprising that we just have not picked up our pitchforks and snapped a whole lot sooner.
And you know what? That is, I don't know how much time we got left. Because I am respectful of time, but that is because of the programming. There's a subconscious programming that prevents us from doing it. It's a subconscious programming that has stopped, and it's a generational. It's literally down to like our DNA why that hasn't happened. And there's a reason why white people continue to do the things. It's not just because of the laws. It's a teaching that has happened over hundreds of years, that you can do this and you will be fine. There's a teaching for us that you can try to do this but this is what's going
Mhm.
to happen.
Right. Right.
So even though we know that there needs to be some kind of an uprising that needs to happen, it won't happen like it needs to.
Yeah.
And what that means is, every time I say that, I think about Haiti. What happened, they had this that. Now, the funny part is, I believe that the powers that be are thinking along those lines. And again, that's why that verdict was a guilty verdict.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
until we as a Black community really click with each other, see, but even that is a subconscious programming, because in order for me to click with you and you click with somebody else on a consistent level to get things done and get things built, I have to trust you.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, our ability to trust each other has been severely broken.
Yeah.
It's been nearly severed.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we're experiencing is because of what we've been through and what we've experienced from a traumatic level.
Mhm.
But it's also because that teaching of what we once were prior to slavery is not nearly as strong as the slavery teaching.
Yeah.
Consistently telling somebody that they was slaves, held against their will for X amount of years, what do you think that translates to our newer generation?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
if you have nothing that matches that, teach about Mansa Musa, teach about Queen Nzinga, teach about all these other prominent Black people that once ruled and that was the richest in the land, so that we can see that we weren't just slaves, we were
Yeah.
royalty.
Right.
But because that doesn't happen subconsciously, we're always bound until we begin to see something different. And that's why now we have the representation matter movement happening.
Yeah.
So it's that's why I say it's so complex. Like, the issue is so complex that it's not just one thing. But if we
Yeah.
consistently keep pulling that thread, we'll get there. But we have to hold the thread to keep pulling it. We'll hold it, pull it, drop it, hold it.
Yeah.
We won't
Yeah.
get nowhere.
Right. And you're right. Consistency does matter. A consistent, strong force. And that's kind of probably what really helped with the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. was consistent. You know, if he had to go to jail, he didn't care. He was consistent in the
Consistent.
fight. And the team he had with him was consistent in the fight. And when you see those things that were effective, that made those big changes, it was because people were consistent. They stayed in that fight. They didn't care about dogs, water hoses, this or that. They still showed up the next day and the day
Right.
after and the day after. They remain consistent. So consistency does matter, even when I remember when they were doing the social media thing where no one buys gas on Tuesday or whatever, but that only happened for a little bit of time. And then how many people really didn't buy gas? You know what I'm saying? Like, how many people were
Yeah,
really not going to Walmart on Wednesdays or not doing this or and made it a consistent thing that happened every week or every month, whatever the plan is. But it kind of fell off and you didn't hear about it anymore.
exactly. Exactly. And when you have things like that in place, it's just the way that humans work. If you're going to take something or remove something, you have to put something in its place. So for movements like that to consistently be successful, we can say don't buy gas here, but go buy gas at this Black owned gas station. You see,
Yeah.
so that's how we remove the hand that's offending us, but also encourage our community and help our own
Right.
community to thrive. So you can't just take you because human nature doesn't work that way. Because
Yeah.
if you don't put something in its place, human nature is going to see that there's a lack and there's something that's missing. And it's going to go back to what you just removed because there's nothing
Mhm.
in its place.
Right. Right. No, that makes sense. No. 'Cause it's like, what else do you say? Well, oh my God, what do you, because like you stated, we could talk about this until the cows come home.
Right.
And we'll still, once they get home, we'll still be saying, so now what do we do? You know
So
what
now what
I'm
do we do?
saying? So
Exactly.
we'll still be asking the question because, as you stated, there isn't one solution, is
Hmm.
multiple layers and variables to this matter. But I want us to be able to talk about it because maybe we could
Absolutely.
reach, just one person, maybe one person to hear this today and say, you know what? Let me see what I can do in my community. Maybe they will
Right.
start a block club, maybe, you know what I'm saying, or something. And that is at least one step closer
Absolutely.
to the long road we have ahead of us.
Hmm.
I want to thank you again for coming on. So,
You're welcome.
being human thought engineer,
Yeah.
what thought can you leave us with today to help encourage us, even if it's just for the week?
Even if it's just for the week, what I would say um is get in touch with yourself. Learn more about you. Learn more about what makes you function. Honor yourself. Honor those things that you've been saying to yourself that you want to do. Do those things. Things that you say that you no longer want to do. Learn how not to do them. Because it's easy to say, well, I'm not going to do something. That's very easy to say, but you have to learn how not to do it. Just like you learn to do something, you have to learn how not to do it. It's and be good to yourself. Grant yourself some grace because everybody is trying, everybody is learning, everybody is figuring out something. Everybody is students in this human experience.
Yeah.
Everybody is learning. So just be patient with yourself, um, and just grant yourself some grace. Learn how to rest. Lord, learn how to rest. Learn the gift of resting and not view it as lazy, not view it as, but just view it simply as giving yourself something that's needed. Is rest. Learn how to rest not just your body, but your mind. Learn how to turn your mind down and not think and just be. And if you don't know how to just be, look at nature. Nature just is. It just does what
Mhm.
it's supposed to do. It doesn't think about it. And I understand people like, well, it's not human. I understand, but the principle is the same. It is what it is. And because it does what it does, we get everything that we need. It's the
Yeah.
exact same principles for us. Just honor who you are. If you don't know who you are, then start the road to discovery.
Yeah. Well, for anyone who want to learn more about your clinic, maybe even come in for services or anything, how would they be able to contact?
They can reach me on Facebook. I am on Facebook at Crystal Nicole. They can find me there. They can find me on Instagram as well, and Crystal Nicole.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I know you stated at the beginning that you do have a book out. It's on
I do.
Amazon right now. And the name of that book is And Then the Light Bowed.
It is, yes.
Okay. And just a little bit, tell me what this is about.
Okay, and then the light bow is the anthology. It's a collection of self-reflective thoughts. Some of these thoughts I have been gathering for years. A lot of these self-reflective thoughts were written during my time of depression. So a lot of them are me talking to myself. But then there's also further explanation or expansion on those thoughts from the crystal I am now. So
Okay.
it's a reflective, piece that's written.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will be purchasing your book.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that today when we get off the line. So
Okay.
I'm all about trying to support and help, others. And then
Yes.
and especially if it's something that can help me.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, we have a lot of parallel thoughts
Mm-hmm.
with other people, and we think that it's just us. And then you find
Mm-hmm.
out someone else felt that way too, and it could be like a sigh of relief, like, oh, it's not just me out here. So
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I would definitely be doing that. Anything else new and exciting going on with you that you might want to share that we can take part in?
Not yet. But I have your contact information and I can shoot it to you. I know that the center itself will be opening in the spring of 2022, but there
Okay.
will be um different lectures and different teachings and different things going on prior to that. So once all of that is finalized, I can get that to you.
Well, I would love to have you back on when it's ready to open. Maybe by then I'll be mobile. I could do like, a grand opening thing or something. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
that would be awesome.
God is moving in mysterious ways. So we don't know what the future holds, but I'm excited for it.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much again for coming on and
You're
having
welcome.
this hard conversation with me
Hmm.
and, letting me know that my dysfunction is not alone.
Okay.
I always try to end with, some type of laugh. I like to laugh throughout it
Yep.
because
Yep.
it's
That
such
was
a
good.
serious matter that,
It
you
is
have to find something to laugh
something.
about
Yeah,
because
you're
you'll
right.
be crying all day.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you again. I am really happy that we got the chance to do this, and hopefully we'll be able to sit down and do this again. And, whether it's this topic or another topic, like I said, the opening of your center, I would love to be a part of that as well. And
Okay.
to everybody that joined us today, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Faithfully Her. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave comments. If you have comments on the topic today, you can reach me at faithfullyher@gmail.com. I'm also available on Facebook as well as Instagram, Faithfully Her. And as always, I love you guys. Have a blessed week in Christ. Keep your heads up. Talk to you soon. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Crystal.
Bye.